Check. All right. All right, we'll touch on the Seinfeld thing later.
Yeah, I think that'd be because I know what you're trying to go for by doing a light subject.
Right. Well, and
to open like we usually do, but I don't know. For some reason, I just wasn't hitting because it caught me so off guard.
Right.
Like,
Well, usually I like to catch you off guard because usually roll with it, but.
For some reason, that one was so far out of left field. I just wasn't feeling it at all. So,
All right.
yeah.
Well, you seemed uneasy, so I decided to start with something. Okay, good. I'll start it the way I originally thought. All right, here we go.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Live from a NASCAR bunker in Kyle's parents' basement, it's Turn the Radio Off with Mike Parsons and Kyle Bauer.
Become a fan at Facebook.com/TTRO Show. Follow along on Twitter.com/TTRO Show. Or just listen right now. It's Turn the Radio Off.
All right, so is this the point where we all check out now?
Because things have settled down, because it's down to 2 actual candidates for sure. I mean,
No, because we've seen enough politics. I mean, I think by now everyone's freaked out by the Republicans. Everyone is disillusioned by the Democrats. We know we hate everybody, and I'm at the point now, Kyle, where I'm ready to pretend it doesn't exist until November.
it's really bizarre because voter turnout with these candidates should be at a record low, but it's probably going to be actually pretty high. It's so bizarre. It really is, isn't it?
Remember that old hot take people used to have when American Idol was a thing, and people said, well, geez, American Idol gets 700 million voters a night. I wish this many people cared about politics. Well, this is what you're seeing. This is what happens when, quote, as many people care about American Idol as politics.
Yeah, and Trump has raised the bar for everyone because Trump has ignited passions because it's either, well, and Bernie Sanders too on the left, of course, because it's either people are like, yeah, this guy says what we really feel. He don't give a fuck.
This guy makes it okay for me to be racist.
Or it's we got to stop this guy.
Right.
Yeah. So it's one or the other, and it's really brought passions to a high, and
a tinderbox level.
And even though these might be the 2 worst candidates that at least I can remember in my 30 years on Earth. Yeah, it's funny because, Mike, this should be the point where we're so disillusioned and so disgusted that we've checked out. No, instead, I really feel like a lot of folks are right there. And while the Republican National Convention, the ratings are actually low as they've been in almost 30 years.
Really? That's encouraging.
And I'm not sure what the ratings will be once the DNC is wrapped up. It seemed like last night everybody was abuzz over Michelle Obama's speech, and rightfully so. It was magnificent. But it really does seem like everyone is hanging on by a thread right now. It feels like we got people on the right firmly believing that Hillary is going to take this country off the cliff, and people on the left firmly believe that Trump is going to take this country off the cliff. And this is as fired up. I mean, because even with Romney, like 2012, people kind of knew what they were getting with Obama.
Right.
Like, people on the right were complaining. They were coming up with the whole birther thing, and they were trying to find excuses, trying to find reasons to hate Obama.
Bob Dole, if you're listening, run. I will vote for you. Al Gore, if you're listening, run. I will vote for you. Bologna sandwich, please run. I will vote for you.
But that's the point, though. nobody could say that Romney was going to take you off the cliff.
Right.
You know what I mean? Romney was so safe and so neutral.
Right. He was just a boring chode.
Yet when he tried to get back in the ring for like a day, you saw what happened. Trump ate him alive.
A big yawn. Well, at that point, the Trump train was already at full momentum, and
Trump hit him so hard he evaporated.
Well, you mentioned earlier that this week is the Democratic National Convention. Last week was the Republican one. I've got some thoughts on the Republican convention we'll touch on in a second. But, so this convention started out as just a disaster. And it's Monday night, so it's still early. Another disaster can befall the convention. It seemed like there was a new disaster every night at the Republican one. But just days before the Democratic National Convention, there was some leaked emails. Some people think it's Russian hackers. I don't know yet. But
I actually believe that personally. If you want to get into that more later, we can.
Yeah, but so these emails were from the server of the Democratic National Committee, pretty much saying, hey, this Bernie Sanders guy is a chode. We got to make sure that Hillary gets the nomination. And
attacking his religion.
Right. They had strategies to go against Bernie Sanders. And when this came out, a lot of people were rightfully pissed.
I was.
And
I wasn't that surprised, but I was pissed.
Right. Well, I think we all kind of had an idea that the Democratic National Committee was behind Hillary Clinton. If you just look at the debate schedule, the Republicans had 2 prime-time debates before the Democrats had their first debate, which was buried at like 8 o'clock on a Saturday. Because, the feeling was, okay, this thing for Hillary Clinton was a foregone conclusion, so the less you see of these two, the more, the natural order will take its place, and Hillary will get the nomination. And, of course, Bernie Sanders, he caught fire. He put up a hell of a fight, and eventually, what everyone thought would happen happened, and Hillary Clinton got the nomination. Now, I'm not going to go overboard and say that Bernie Sanders would have won the nomination without interference from the National Committee, but at that point, your job as a committee isn't to handpick a candidate. It's to get the most electable candidate nominated so that your party can win. And just think of the logic, okay? Hillary Clinton needs the committee's help to get the nomination. And then, so if she can't win the nomination, what makes people think that she's going to do better against someone who actually won the nomination, the Republican candidate, if she needed help winning her own? It's terrible strategy. And at the beginning of the convention, Kyle, I was watching it, and I'm thinking, you know what? Donald Trump's our next president. Because it was so eerie to watch. You had these people up on stage giving their speeches, and it's like they're behind glass. You remember that scene in the Blues Brothers where they're playing that honky-tonk bar and people are throwing glass bottles? That's what it was like. You had a little bubble up on stage, and it was totally disconnected from what was going out in the crowd. And people were booing. I tuned it on just in time to see Sarah Silverman telling the Bernie Sanders supporters that they're being ridiculous. That was quite that was quite uncomfortable. And then Michelle Obama came up. And I think that she saved the convention, and she may have saved Hillary Clinton's candidacy.
Yeah, and I really believe that the last string of speakers, and I still have yet to have seen Cory Booker's speech, but I heard it was long but very good.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was able to tune in for Michelle Obama, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie Sanders.
I was trying to stay up to see Bernie Sanders because that was the one speech I wanted to see because, of course, obviously all day it was Hillary supporters versus Bernie Sanders supporters who, like I said, were rightfully pissed.
And Sanders had a big wind-up, but his speech was ultimately, and he had a lot of his Sanders, Bernie platitudes,
Right.
But ultimately it was a very good speech. And
I gotta admit, I fell asleep during Elizabeth Warren. No
Yeah.
disrespect to Elizabeth Warren. It was just late and I was tired.
Elizabeth Warren's speech was very good until the end when she started with the "I'm with her" chants, and she got into some very disingenuous.
Yeah, it's like, look, Michelle just got this thing turned around. Let's
Right.
just take a knee and run the clock out
Right,
here.
exactly. I mean, Elizabeth Warren, I'm not going to dissect the speeches too much. I'll just put it this way. Michelle gave an incredible speech. There's no other way to put it. It was one of the, I'll concur with everyone else who knows a lot more about this stuff than I do. Yeah, it was one of the best speeches I've ever heard, and I'm sure when historians say that it was one of the best political speeches of our time. But Elizabeth Warren, so like I said, Elizabeth Warren was just drilling Trump, and then she went into the stumping for Hillary, and it fell flat, and it kind of goes into the spirit of I think you'll see throughout the rest of the convention, and certainly at the beginning of the convention, where there was a lot of disingenuous stumping for Hillary, where they're talking about Hillary fighting the big banks, where they're talking about Hillary fighting for wage reform, where they're talking about Hillary, fighting all these battles these progressive battles that really it was Bernie who first brought them
Right.
up and had to force her hand to the left. And that's what annoys me the most about establishment Democrats throughout this whole process, where including the whole talk about Glass-Steagall reform, which the Glass-Steagall Act is something that Bernie Sanders has talked about bringing back.
Quickly, what's the Glass-Steagall Act?
Well, that was an act that was originally brought in after the Depression to help add regulations on big banks to basically protect another stock market crash.
Okay, and it was
from
repealed
happening.
or sunset?
It was repealed in 1996. And that lack of
the Clinton
during the Clinton administration,
Yeah.
right? So during that lack of regulation, again, the banks get big, the banks get greedy, and what do we have? We have the Great Recession of 2008. Sanders wanted to enact a new version of that. Well, what happens when Clinton and the rest of the establishment Democrats balk at it? Well, Clinton is off, getting tens of thousands of dollars, actually six figures for Goldman Sachs speeches. What happens? The Democrats actually wanted to take it in their platform, and then last night I'm hearing from Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders that they want to adopt it in the Democrat platform. So which one is it? That's part of the feeling of disingenuousness that I don't get that sense from Warren and Sanders when I hear them speak. I believe that they want this stuff, but you don't believe that Clinton wants this stuff. And that's the disconnect from establishment Democrats and from people on the far left. And that's what pisses me off when I hear stories of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, her arrogance first when you hear about this and all of her leaks. And then what pisses me off even more is when you hear Sarah Silverman, who's actually a Bernie Sanders supporter.
Right.
Tell Bernie Sanders supporters that they're being ridiculous.
Right. Look, emotions were raw, okay? You have this guy who, you're talking about a guy who, it seemed like he had a real, genuine grassroots movement that almost succeeded. And you get involved in the electoral process thinking that things are equal and thinking that you have a chance. And then to find out that you never had a chance to begin with. You and I were talking about this before the show, Kyle. You had a whole generation of young voters who weren't only excited about a candidate, they were excited about the electoral process. And now you probably turned off a good amount of young voters from ever giving a shit about politics again. Because what's the point?
Exactly. And that's the problem with this, that establishment Democrats, again, are so far up their own ass with their own arrogance and elitism and entitlement,
Right.
that they don't understand that, and they still don't understand that. They've learned nothing from this.
Well, and you know what? If Hillary Clinton gets elected, why should they learn anything from this?
Exactly, and that's the problem. And I still see a lot of Hillary Clinton people, on Twitter and on Facebook, making a lot of snarky comments, and especially last night on Twitter, a lot of them were really preening last night. Telling, Bernie, really mocking and making fun of Bernie
Right.
Sanders supporters. Listen, I understand it's uncomfortable to hear Elijah Cummings, who is a civil rights hero, be booed up on stage when
Right.
he's trying to give a speech. I understand the importance of party unity, but you know what I heard Elijah Cummings say today on NPR? I heard him say, I understand why they're upset, I understand why they're angry, and I understand the importance of me being in the crossfires. And by the time Michelle Obama got up on stage by the end of the night, they were calmed down, they are more respectful, and she got her message across, and that was what was most important by the end of the night.
Well, and I think Michelle Obama, she had to win that crowd over.
She had to,
because the crowd warmed up to her as she went on.
And how could you not warm up to what she had to say? And what is really what I was really taken aback by, though, was just again, a lot of the folks just not getting it through this whole thing. Listen, you can argue about maybe the where the hacks came from. I don't care if the source of the hacks were Russians.
Right.
I don't care if the source of the hacks were anti-Semites. I don't care if the source of the hacks were WikiLeaks, who, are led by Julian Assange, who is in exile not only because of espionage, but also he's dodging a couple rape charges right now, too. I know that Julian Assange is a very questionable person.
Doesn't mean the collusion didn't happen.
Yes, exactly, and that's the point. The point is what Debbie Wasserman Schultz did was wrong. And the point is that the Democratic Party has a lot of systemic issues. And it goes back to the whole notion that a lot of Hillary Clinton supporters have had to begin with, and I've talked about this before on the show, that it makes me sick. This whole idea of entitlement, this whole idea of it being her turn. It's her turn. Oh, get out of the way, Bernie.
Right.
It's her turn. It's nobody's fucking turn.
And you know what?
It's democracy's turn. We don't live in a fucking system where it's anyone's turn.
Right.
It's democracy's turn, and the people will decide that.
And you know what? That really irked me back in 2008. Hillary Clinton was, before Barack Obama came in like a wrecking ball, that it was her turn.
And people were scared.
Right.
And I think Wasserman Schultz was scared, and I think that's what started a lot of this.
Well, talking about Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I think the fact that she tried to, speak the next day after this news came out and she was booed off stage, and the fact that she was still planning on gaveling the convention in and out just shows how out of touch she is.
And again, establishment Democrats just up their own ass, entitlement, arrogance, disgusting.
She must have one hell of a bubble to think that she could pull this shit, get caught, and still carry on with normal business. You know what the amazing thing, though, about Michelle Obama's speech was, though? It seemed like, number one, she saved the convention. If she doesn't make that speech, I think there's still chaos today. There still might be. Like I said, it's Monday night. It's still a long way to go.
It seemed like the roll call went well, and that's a good sign for the rest of the convention.
But she did it without addressing the email scandal, the hack. And I was thinking that someone's going to have to address it, because it was such a disconnect between what people were saying on the stage, just going on with their happy horseshit speeches, while everyone on the floor was pissed. I was thinking, if I'm Bernie Sanders, I'm coming out and saying, "Look, I got jobbed." I had a great Bernie impression for about a week, but it went away. Anyway, I would. If I were Bernie, I'd go up there like, "Look, I got jobbed. This is horseshit, and we all got screwed. But the alternative to Hillary Clinton even though right now we're mad and it turns our stomach to think of voting for her, the alternative is Donald Trump. So, and I might just walk off the stage. Like, look, anything is better than Donald Trump. So I guess we all have to take that anger, put it into a little ball in the pit of our stomach, and just maintain status quo, even though status quo is not the desired outcome. It's not the worst case scenario in this situation.
There is a little bit of that in his speech at the beginning. I mean, when he went through a super long wind-up, and he did kind of mention a little bit through that, that there are some difficulties in his campaign and there is some controversy in his campaign, but ultimately you have to accept the outcome, and you have to accept that Hillary Clinton is the best candidate and must win the presidency at this point, and that Donald Trump cannot win, and he made it very cut and dry as far as right now you have an A and B choice, and you can't go with Donald Trump.
Right.
I thought he aligned himself very well with Hillary Clinton, and the thing with Bernie that really makes me believe, and while I do have some fear, of course, that Donald Trump can win this election, like I said,
I think he might.
I felt...
you know what, honestly, Kyle, I think the only way Donald Trump loses this election is if people go to Gary Johnson. I don't think that Hillary Clinton is going to get more votes than Donald Trump. All you can hope for is that Gary Johnson siphons off enough votes a la Ross Perot and George H.W. and gets her elected like Perot got her husband elected.
See, I feel like as hated as Hillary Clinton is, even after all the email, even after the leak, which was, just really devastating to read about. And again, it's just so pathetic the way I'm seeing so many Hillary folks just play this off like it was nothing.
Right.
Just shameful.
Look,
shameful how they play it off.
Right.
Well, let me finish.
Sure.
Even if I were a Hillary supporter, like tried and true, which just shudder at the thought of being comfortable with this candidate. I couldn't come out of that. I couldn't come out of that and be like, oh, whatever, that's not a big deal.
Right.
So what? So what they tried to rig an entire primary for? Right. So what they just insulted and spit in the face of democracy, the very foundation of what binds our country together.
So what?
So what?
So what they pushed a candidate who they weren't sure could win an election up against Donald Trump, giving him a better opportunity to win the election.
That's okay. It's her turn. Yeah.
Well,
again, just shameless. I think just
fuck. Well, look, Kyle, you were a born Bernie guy. At least I know you voted for him in the primary.
Oh,
right?
yeah, proudly. Probably the only time. I was pretty happy to vote for Obama in 2012, but. Even then, there are some things about Obama with Syria and stuff I was uncomfortable about. Bernie, I voted for. And even then, I'm sure, had I dug a little bit deeper, I could find some things with Bernie's.
Right.
Like, even with Bernie with guns and stuff like that, I know that he doesn't have a perfect mark in Israel and stuff. Okay, whatever. Besides the point. Point is, I voted with as much pride as I've ever voted for someone with Bernie.
So right now, you're speaking passionately as a Bernie Sanders supporter. Me, I voted strategically Republican in the primary.
Explain.
I voted against Trump.
Okay.
I voted against Trump. John Kasich was leading in the polls by the time I was voting, so I went to pad John Kasich's numbers. He actually ended up coming in third. But so I wasn't a Sanders guy. So as someone without a dog in this fight, I find it deplorable, and I was upset when I read about it. We have to take a quick break, of course. Speaking of the Republicans, I've got a couple of thoughts on that RNC. Turn the radio off on the internet.
Turn the radio off with Mike Parsons,
No drug dealers living next to me. Pretty good deal.
Kyle Bauer.
Yeah.
People hate my podcast.com.
Sometimes I wish I'd been at that convention in San Francisco. I mean, I wish I'd been a delegate. I really do, because I would have fought, you know? And I wouldn't have worried so much about party unity, because if you unite behind a man you don't believe in, it's a lie. I tell you, those people who got control of that convention, who are they? I mean, when the head of the Ku Klux Klan, when all these weird groups come out in favor of the candidate of my party, either they're not Republicans or I'm not. I've thought about just not voting in this election, just staying home, but you can't do that, because that's saying you don't care who wins, and I do care. I think my party made a bad mistake in San Francisco, and I'm going to have to vote against that mistake on the 3rd of November.
Vote for President Johnson on November 3rd. The stakes are too high for you to stay home.
Switch off the radio. Turn off the radio. Shut down your radio system.
We'll do it live.
What?
I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Turn the radio off. There you go. I'm drunk.
All right, before we move on to the, I'm going to call it the pre-shit show undercard, because as much as I thought the Republican National Convention was a shit show, day one of the DNC was a shit show. But you have a final thought on the current shit show that's going on in Philadelphia.
Well, at least it didn't finish with their final speaker plagiarizing a speech. So
Yeah.
there's that. I mean, at least the DNC day one had a nice finish to it.
Yeah. Which, you know what? With that one, I don't know. That one was funny. I guess it didn't irk me all that much, because it's like, look, no one writes their own speeches. I don't necessarily think that's on Melania Trump as it is on the bozo who wrote it.
Yeah, it wasn't. That's more on Trump's campaign.
Right.
Yeah, than her.
Right.
But anyway, we could probably get into that a little bit more later if you want to. I think it's already a non-story.
Yeah.
But
I'm over it.
yeah. But I was going to say, for those Bernie bros, if you will, unfortunately, they've become more man than myth over the past few months than I really believe they were. I mean, honestly, I thought they were just a creation of the New York Times, which I'm surprised they weren't implicated more in this leak.
Yeah.
Because if you want to talk about a publication that's been in bed with her, over time in her campaign, certainly. But if they want to take solace in something, and all the Bernie supporters, and something that I'm looking forward to, you're going to continue to get Bernie speeches. You're going to continue to see a lot of Bernie, but he's going to be stumping for Hillary. He gave a great speech last night. He gave a classic Bernie speech last night, but he did it for Hillary. And that's something that you're going to continue to see, and something that she's going to need. She's going to need Bernie to continue to be Bernie, but he's going to need to be Bernie for Hillary now.
Right.
And you're going to continue to see him doing classic Bernie speeches. You're going to be seeing him fill up arenas, like he fill up college campuses, fill up college stadiums. You're going to be seeing him continue to do what he's been doing best throughout his campaign. Just now, he's going to be doing it for Hillary. And I think he's going to be a big boost to his campaign. Also, Michelle Obama. I think that's another thing you saw a preview of last night. I think you're going to see the Obamas. Elizabeth Warren. Last night, the final three speakers, I thought you saw a big preview of what's to come as far as Hillary's campaign. And I think, ironically, you're going to be seeing everybody but Hillary getting Hillary elected.
Right. It might actually be best to see less of Hillary in this whole process.
And again, that's like the biggest BS thing about what the Democrats did. Because it was her turn,
right.
They put out a real shitty candidate. And there were probably a lot better candidates that they could have put forth. And even though the New York Times called her the most qualified candidate of our generation.
Right. Right. Well, and that's kind of been...
Who the fuck got paid to call her that?
That's been the rallying cry.
Jesus
because
fucking Christ. How shameless. Just all this shameless standing that's been done for this fucking woman. Anyway... Oh, God.
Well,
I
and
get a fucking headache thinking about it. Good Lord.
And the sad thing is here, Kyle, that the best possible scenario now is just maintaining the status quo. Because, let's be honest, well, you know what? The weird thing about Donald Trump is everyone sort of projects their worst fears onto him, right? There's some of us who think that he's going to be a McCarthyism pseudo-dictator. There's a lot of conservatives who think he's going to be a Democrat in Republican clothing. Personally, I feel that this country will become very regressive very quickly under a Donald Trump presidency.
Yeah, I do too.
And he's already said that he wants to repeal the marriage amendment. He's already said that he wants to take away the law that doesn't make churches tax exempt if they decide to donate politically, which I don't like. Honestly, I think a lot of the problem is that religion is becoming its own political party.
Yeah.
To be honest, and I think that even with these safeguards there's too much religion in politics.
Which none of this makes sense or follows anything he said in the past, or follows any of his previous personal branding, which makes him all the more confusing.
Right. Well, I guess best case scenario is somehow he gets elected by the people who want a super conservative dictator, and he ends up just being somewhat of a moderate Democrat. He's just going nuts to get elected, and then he goes back to being a moderate Democrat. But I mean, that's something that I don't even really want to toy with. But yeah, so the Republican National Convention, I was on vacation for most of it, but I would get in late and catch the last speeches, and well, what did I like about the Republican National Convention? Let's see. I liked that. I liked Ted Cruz's power troll move.
Yeah, I actually liked that too. I mean, it was incredibly disrespectful, but hilarious just because it was Trump.
Right, and obviously he did it for personal reasons. But he went up there to give his speech Wednesday night, I believe it was. A lot of people are shocked that he was speaking so late in the convention. But he went up there Wednesday night, and people were waiting for him to endorse Donald Trump. And he said, "Vote your conscience," up and down the ticket. Everyone's like, "Fuck this guy! Don't vote your conscience. Vote for Donald Trump, fear and partisan hackery." I'm like, yeah. It's like, look, Ted Cruz, I know you're not saying this for virtuous reasons, but I love that you said it, because nobody should ever get pissed at somebody for telling them to vote your conscience.
Right. Which, in good conscience, I mean, really, think about it. How many conservatives, like actual... And that's the incredible thing to me, that we're hearing conservatives. Like I'm listening to we had a Bauer family function on Sunday.
Oh boy.
And you know what those are like. And for whatever reason, probably because of the Republican convention being the week prior, everyone was all fired up.
Oh yeah.
And my cousin wasn't there, so I didn't have anyone to converse with, and there was no blocker there. I mean, I couldn't drink because it was at I drove there and I didn't have enough time to kill, so like I had nothing to block me. No filters, no buffers, right? So I'm listening to them, and they're talking about Trump building the wall, and so what if Trump wants to work with the Russians? That can be a good thing. And I'm listening to this, and I'm thinking, my uncle's saying this. My uncle, who has his entire life extolled the virtues of Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm listening to somebody who believes Ronald Reagan is Jesus 2.0.
Right.
Ronald Reagan, right? Ronald Reagan talking about Russians being a good thing.
Right.
Ronald Reagan talking about building walls.
Right. You would think that if there was a theory out there that the Russians were behind some kind of hack to favor a candidate, that candidate should be automatically disqualified, or at least everything that we've seen leading in political discourse leading up to the guy who makes people feel better about hating Mexicans.
That the conservatives have gone completely backwards on their principles, all in the name of racism.
And think about it, Kyle, okay? Think about in 8 years, whether you agree with his politics or policies or not. We go from electing our first black president to having one of our presidential frontrunners in the lead because he makes people feel better about being somewhat racist.
Yeah, openly endorsed by white nationalists, has also accepted endorsements from white nationalists. Like, that's the other thing. Trump has accepted endorsements from white nationalists.
Remember when that started happening, David Dukes came out and it was like, yay, Trump. And he's like, oh, well, I haven't done any research on the group. Oh, okay. So you'll go out and say all Mexicans are rapists, and you'll go out and say all Muslims must be banned from the country. But when it comes to the Ku Klux Klan, you got to do a little more research.
Yeah, and then also, David Duke is now running for Senate.
Right.
Because he's seen what Trump is, and that's given him confidence that he can run for public office again. After 30 years, well, 25 years of having to sideline himself after being outed as a Klansman and realizing that he can't run for public office.
But, Kyle, he was a Democrat.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that old Southern Democrats.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, guess what? He's running as now, a Republican.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. It's right. It's just exactly. They've sacrificed their principles. They've sacrificed their morals. They've sacrificed their conscience for someone who I would like. Wouldn't Trump be considered amoralistic, like, by any standard of Christianity? He's been married 3 times. He would be considered hedonistic, right?
Yeah, but Hillary Clinton let her husband get blowjabs.
Garish? I mean, think of this guy.
Yeah.
He covers everything in gold. False idols.
Right. Well, like I said, he makes a lot of people feel better about
graven
being
images.
xenophobe. Yeah. I know. Well, you know what? The weird thing about Donald Trump is that he seems to be able to get
foul-mouthed.
He can get people to bend to his will, except for Ted Cruz. Even though Ted Cruz has played the game in the past, it seems like both him and Hillary Clinton find a way to make their rivals bend to their will. Really, that's what these conventions are. When Ben Carson gets up and starts saying that Hillary Clinton loves herself some Lucifer, or when Bernie Sanders goes up and says, vote Hillary Clinton. Pretty much what this is a victory lap showing all the trophies, all the heads of their former political opponents in their trophy room.
Yeah, really is. I
Yeah.
mean, that's how grim it is, and but it really just blows your mind when you stop and you think, like, here we actually are.
Right.
Like, it is official. Trump is the nominee. And, of course, at this time last year, you know, I laughed it off.
Yep.
And I was right about one thing, that the primary was rigged for Hillary.
Yeah.
I was right about that. Now that's a fact.
Yeah.
But that to see, though, these men of God, but I think it also shows you too, and what I'm about to say, Mike, might make you uncomfortable, but I'll just go there.
Yeah, go ahead. It won't be the first time.
It all shows you just what a sham religion is with a lot of people. And by that, I mean how they hide behind it.
Mm-hmm.
How religious conviction is just used as a tool of judgment, as a tool of fear.
I'm perfectly comfortable with you saying that because I mean, you see it. The last bastion of a scoundrel, I forgot who said this, but it was said back when Kwame Kilpatrick, he was busted.
Prayer, the last refuge of a scoundrel.
Right. They evoke Todd Corser, They evoke the Lord saying, "Oh, well, the Lord has forgiven me, so you should too." The Lord thinks you're an asshole, and the Lord would like you to stop using His name to excuse yourself for being an asshole.
But I mean, think about it. You got these people. I mean, and I already threw out there the theory that I think a lot of Catholics are going to be voting for Hillary. Actually, so maybe not them, and I don't know the poll numbers yet on that.
I guess Tim Kaine's pro-choice.
Yes, he is, and despite him being a devout, he's legislatively he's pro-choice. Personally, he's anti-choice.
I like that. You know what?
Yeah.
It shows that he's got a brain in his head and not just a letter next to his name.
Yeah. So personally, yeah. So that's the way he. So I mean, he's got two different sides to him in that regard. So legislatively, but personally, it's different. But I was going to say though. You see all these evangelists. How would any evangelist want to align themselves with Donald Trump without any hint of irony?
Well, the televangelists, because they just want to get paid.
Without a straight face. But, Mike, think about the integrity here. Like, I'm thinking about, I'm thinking about some people I know who are religious in my personal life. And I'm thinking about everything they stand for. I'm thinking about some people who work in the same field that I do. I'm thinking about everything they supposedly stand for. And I'm thinking about how Donald Trump wants to basically end Medicaid as a program in our country. And I'm thinking about how they're also religious at the same time. And I'm thinking about how you can stand behind a man who has basically spent his entire life by their book, sinning, going against their lifestyle by a man who has not openly professed religion.
Because
in the past, it was so important to them. We had to listen to a president, George W. Bush, talk about his Christianity, talk about how he spoke to God before killing thousands of innocent people. That's what he had to say as an excuse for killing thousands of innocent people. And by the way, Christians got behind that too.
Because, Kyle, you got to keep the Mexicans out. You got to build this wall. And let's talk about this wall for a second. Say the wall gets built, which it won't.
Even if he gets elected, I highly doubt that'll get built. And if it does, they won't pay for it. And if it does, it'll cost billions, and it'll be a bigger fucking boondoggle than the Iraq War.
And you know what's going to happen? The moment somebody gets over that wall, there's going to be a lot of sorry for the hokey term, but I can't think of a better. There's going to be a lot of egg on Donald Trump's face, and he's going to look like a major idiot.
Well, okay, actually, no, there is no bigger boondoggle than the Iraq War and war in Afghanistan. But point being, it'll be another huge fucking boondoggle caused by a Republican. Funny how that works out, isn't it?
We got to take a quick break. It's Turn the Radio Off on the Internet.
Turn the radio off. With Mike Parsons.
No drug dealers living next to me. Pretty good deal.
Kyle Bauer.
Yeah.
People hate my podcast.com.
Who asked you to go out of town? The stupid young one or the married one?
The married one.
That's what I thought. Don't go. You hear me? And you know what? You're not listening to me because I see you going. I see you going. I'm just telling you. I'm trying to help you to avoid the heartache. Don't go blindly through life. Let me use the power of the tarot to show you the way. Call me now for your free reading.
Call 1-800-355-3765.
Switch off the radio. Turn off the radio. Shut down your radio system.
We'll do it live.
What?
I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Turn the radio off.
There you go. I'm drunk.
And rest in peace to Miss Cleo. I guess she died today, age of 53, of colon cancer. There's a couple of loose ends here I wanted to tie up, Kyle, about the Republican National Convention. And it has to do with two big media figures from the opposite ends of the spectrum. What the hell is this guy's name? Milo Yiannopoulos, the Breitbart editor.
Oh, that weirdo.
The gay Breitbart editor, who was banned from Twitter for pretty much harassing the hell out of Leslie Jones, who is the black woman from the new Ghostbusters movie. He took to Twitter and started ripping these racist tweets at her, tweeting her a picture of an ape and said there was already a Ghostbusters movie with an ape in it, and of course that emboldened other whack jobs to pile on, and she had a nervous breakdown and left Twitter. And so of course, all these Breitbart hacks and all these right-wing blog readers and keyboard warriors are acting like saying, "Where's the liberal? A gay guy was just booted off Twitter." Well, he wasn't booted off Twitter for being gay. He was booted off Twitter for being an asshole. And yes, you can point to examples of other people posting heinous stuff that don't get banned because it's not as high profile. But you know what? I'm not going to be bummed out over any asshole being booted off Twitter. And if you are, what they're trying to do is they're trying to lift this guy up as a champion of free speech. And I think just about anyone with a logical bone in their body knows that if you do that, you're going to look really, really freaking stupid.
Free speech does not mean you can harass people on Twitter.
Right.
To the point where they feel threatened.
Right. And
that is threatening people.
Twitter's a private company, Kyle. They have the right to ban whoever they want.
Yes,
How do you like your free market now?
Thank you. And also, Twitter is, if you will, a privilege.
Yeah.
Okay? It's a privilege. And I wish Twitter would ban more people.
I do too.
Twitter could easily, if Twitter wanted to, Twitter could probably ban well over 1 million users easily for harassment for doing what Milo did. Easily. But they don't. You know how many? I follow a lot of women hockey bloggers and hockey writers and sports writers. And they constantly deal with harassment.
Yeah.
Constantly deal with harassment, constantly deal with rape threats, constantly deal with death threats, constantly deal with their addresses being tweeted at them, constantly deal with
Gamergators.
Yeah, sexual threats, sexual innuendo and stuff. I mean, it's disgusting and ridiculous. And you're wondering, where the fuck are all these guys coming from? What is their problem? Why are there so many messed up guys out there? Who are these people? Why? Why are so many men just wired to be weird and shitty and just
Because they're let off their leash. There's no societal repercussions.
But why do they exist? What the hell happened?
Because they're scared, weak little men. That's why.
Too much damn privilege is what it is. Anyway, the point being is that Twitter could go, if Twitter needs to actually do more, and I thought Milo banning his stupid ass was a good step because it sets a precedent. It sets a tone by getting a big fish out of the way. It's like nailing the mob boss,
right?
To send, and it isn't like an actual mob where then it disorders the actual. Okay,
but
maybe that was a bad analogy. Point being is that it sets an example, and it sets a huge example that if you're gonna pop the big guy, you can pop all the little guys, okay? So that's what Twitter needs to do. They need to pay attention to all the trolls. They need to pay attention to all the people who get reported. They need to start banning more, and that's my hope, is that they start banning more, because this happens often to epidemic proportions. I see a lot of great, talented women out there who just want to voice their opinion like the rest of us assholes, and they don't deserve to be harassed for that.
Well, and if you're out there saying, "Where are the liberals standing up for the gay guy?" You don't get it. You don't get it.
He's an asshole. Doesn't matter if he's gay.
Right. Liberals don't. I mean, if you're pro-gay rights, that doesn't mean that you give gay guys carte blanche to be racist dicks.
He's a gay dude who won't even stand up for other gay people.
Right. The other end of the spectrum here. Last week during the Republican National Convention, Jon Stewart went on the Late Night with Stephen Colbert, whatever it's called, and he went on a nice rant talking about, the Republicans need to stop saying they're taking the country back because the country was never theirs to begin with. And you could tell the guy was unloading. And a lot of people were excited, and I just said, look, John, that's nice. I agree with everything you're saying. Someone needs to say it. You're about 4 months too late. And like I said, I've said before, all right, it would be ridiculous to blame Jon Stewart for what's happened. But I also feel that he went away when we could have used him. If anything, for just some comic relief and some sanity in this insanity.
Exactly, yeah. For what he's worth. I mean, exactly for what he's worth.
Right.
I mean, for what a sane, rational yet funny opinion is worth, and what all this madness has been. It's good to hear, because that's what Stewart kind of became in the sense that, they used to say Walter Cronkite was the most trusted man in America. That's kind of what Stewart became, towards the end of his run. And, yeah, we missed out on that very important time. He wanted to take time to be with his family. He wanted to take time to himself. Unfortunately for the rest of the country, it was a time when we could have used him.
He could have hung on till the election.
He would have been more opportune for him. Part of me still, a very cynical part of me still wonders if there was a scandal brewing and he popped out.
Could be.
To
Speaking of scandals.
Temper something, yeah.
Speaking of scandals and big fish, Roger Ailes, CEO of Fox News, went away without a fight. I guess Gretchen Carlson?
Gretchen Carlson,
Carlson, she did not get her contract renewed with Fox News. She said that she walked away, or Roger Ailes told her to get lost after he made sexual advances towards her. She went public with sexual harassment allegations. Of course, the White Boy Club, Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity, all came out and said, hey, this is ridiculous. Roger Ailes is a great guy. Tell Gretchen to take her shoes off and get back to the kitchen. Well, she stuck to her guns. I guess there was immense pressure on Megyn Kelly to come out and toe the company line, which she would not do.
Good for her.
And the more she stayed silent, the more pissed off people got. And within a month, Roger Ailes was gone, which leads me to believe that there is a mountain of evidence against him. And I feel like over the last 20 years, Roger Ailes has done immense damage to journalism and political discourse.
He has. He really has. I mean, the guy is a fascist and a half. And, he's obviously a scumbag.
Yeah.
On top of all of that, just for what he's done to the integrity of journalism. And then you add to that all this heinous, sexual harassment, and you could tell there was something brewing at Fox News just with the way that all the anchors looked the same. All the female anchors looked the same.
Foxes.
Right, exactly. I think they had one weekend anchor, and I know a lot about Fox News because, living with my parents for all those years, Fox News is always on. They had one female anchor who she usually did like weekend afternoons, and she had short brunette hair. Yeah, and they kind of like plugged her in on the weekends, like weekend afternoons. Yeah, but other than that, they all had blonde hair, big blonde hair.
Yep.
They all kind of dressed the same.
Jenna Lee's
makeup.
a redhead, but other than
I don't remember her. Maybe she's newer.
She's on from like 9 to 11 a.m.
Okay.
So it's an okay
So
spot, but it's not prime time.
They got her in the morning. Then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. But the point being, you could tell that there was just something weird there because there is no diversity within the women there. There's a pattern of behavior just on sight.
If you're facing sexual harassment allegations,
And by the way, that's not for me to doubt the capabilities of Gretchen Carlson and Megyn Kelly, who both proven to be very talented and capable anchors, especially Megyn Kelly.
Yeah.
I mean, I obviously don't agree with her politics, but she's a
sharp.
good anchor.
Yeah, she's sharp. If you're facing sexual harassment allegations, though, is Bill O'Reilly the guy you want speaking up?
Especially with his own history.
I mean, you have audio recordings of him writing a very in-depth, steamy romance novel, which I don't know if it should be
steamy in the shower. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if it should be in Penthouse or if it should be in a book with Fabio on the cover.
With a loofah.
A loofah.
I'll never forget his pronunciation of loofah.
I'll never
with a loofah.
I'll never forget when he says very matter-of-factly, "You've got great boobs,"
which I've gone that route before.
But
it was the context was way different.
You picked up the social cues that would be welcome.
Exactly.
You didn't leave it on an answering machine. Like, hey, let's give it a shot. That chick's kind of sweet. That chick's kind of good looking.
I left it on an answering machine, but still, it was a welcome voicemail.
Right.
Yes.
Or you say, okay, I'm going to describe parts of your anatomy I like. So if it's unwarranted, you have 5 seconds to hang up.
It was a girl I was seeing.
3, 2, 1. You've got great boobs.
It was a girl I was seeing at the time. I called her. I said,
right.
I just wanted to let you know you have great boobs.
Right. You probably engaged in consensual intercourse with her in the past, which would lead you to believe that a compliment about her breasts would be welcome.
Ass is good. Hair could use some work.
Yeah. Well, I hope you told her that too. Give her the good with the bad. That's good.
Well, right. It was constructive criticism.
Speaking of hanging up, we got to go. Thanks for listening, Paul. Bye.